Okay, so now that you've considered this idea of whether or not you think we should or should not regulate ticket scalping from the perspective of what's fair and what's right, we want to relate it back to supply and demand analysis and try to understand how the things we've been learning so far relate to this practice. So we have not so far on our graphs put our supply and demand curves together. That's important though, because putting those curves together is where we get this whole idea of a market. We did this the first day of the unit. Now we're going to kind of work and put that back together. So this is an interesting supply and demand graph because it doesn't look like a typical graph, and I'm going to explain to you why. So first you notice your supply curve, and you'll notice this supply curve doesn't slope up towards the right. It's a completely straight up and down curve. So we define that as inelasticity, like not elastic. And so what that means is that the supply of Super Bowl tickets is fixed. It doesn't matter what people are going to pay. There is a fixed number of Super Bowl tickets. And so regardless of the price that's going to be paid, that supply is going to stay consistent. So in this graph, if we look, whoever it is that the NFL is selling Super Bowl tickets, and they've put them at the face value is $1,250. So that is going to be the face value. Well, according to the graph, at that price, 12,000 people want to buy those tickets. The problem is that in terms of capacity and seating, the NFL can only offer 9,000 tickets. So at that price, what happens is we have a shortage of 3,000 tickets. So what happens is people buy those tickets knowing full well that they'll be able to sell them for an additional price. By more than doubling the tickets, right? They raise the tickets to $2,600. That's where they're able to find what we refer to as market equilibrium. That's where all the tickets are going to be sold. And so we're not going to have too many. We're not going to have not enough. Like we're going to be, or we're not going to have not enough. We're not going to have too many. Our market is going to clear. And so that's the equilibrium price. So according to a scalper, or somebody who believes in an unregulated market, it would be perfectly okay to purchase those tickets and then resell them on the open market for that higher value to get to that optimum price. What is the highest price we can get to satisfy the most kinds of people, the most number of people? So in other words, this is where supply and demand meet. The law of supply and the law of demand interact. So because though some communities choose to put into place anti-scalping laws, in effect what they do is they create what is called a price ceiling. And a price ceiling is where we set a maximum price on a good or a service to be charged. But the key is that maximum price has to be set below equilibrium. So if you go back here, right, the NFL, they priced the tickets lower than they could have. They could have priced the tickets higher, but they chose not to. A price ceiling is where the government steps in and they set a max price to be charged for a good or service. So one classic example is on rent-controlled apartments. There are some communities where housing is just incredibly, incredibly expensive. And so you have older people who are on fixed incomes, or you have families that are maybe low income who simply can't afford to live in that community. And so the government will require that a certain percentage or a certain number of housing units be priced below what the market equilibrium is. Well, you can see what happens, right? If this is the price ceiling for our good or a service, come over, the quantity supplied is going to be lower, because for suppliers, they're not willing to offer as many at that low price. But at that low price, the quantity demanded is going to be significantly higher. So price ceilings ultimately, while they protect consumers and they help consumers with a particular good, they always end up creating a shortage because our quantity demanded is going to exceed our quantity supplied.